Tim, just before 5 p.m. Tuesday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued the following tweet to his 2.2 million followers, quote, "We will not advance any law against the Christian community," end quote. This after All Israel News reported Sunday on two ultra-Orthodox Knesset members introducing a bill to outlaw anyone from sharing the gospel in Israel. It even threatened violators with prison sentences. News headlines like, quote, "Law proposed in Israel's Knesset would criminalize sharing the gospel" by CBN News, and, quote, "Knesset members propose criminalizing evangelism" by DecisionMagazine.com, covered by Christian news web pages. Israel correspondent Joel Rosenberg thanked Prime Minister Netanyahu for, quote, "his strong, clear, unequivocal statement in defense of the Israeli Christian community," end quote. Greg?
With more on Prime Minister's reaction to the proposed legislation, let's talk with Middle East Bureau Chief for CBN News, Chris Mitchell. Chris, tell us about the bill introduced by a few ultra-Orthodox Knesset members that reportedly includes prison sentences for persuading an adult or minor to accept Jesus.
Well, or exactly what it says is to change their religion, which would include, somebody becoming perhaps a Muslim to a Christian or Jewish to a Christian, in 1 year imprisonment for adults, 2 years for minors. It was proposed. Actually, it's been proposed for many, many years, maybe more than 20 years, but many times it never even gets voted on. And that was probably the same case here. As you said, Benjamin Netanyahu tweeted yesterday that they won't pass any law that would come against or harm the Christian community. He's been a long-term friend of evangelical Christians. Many did, I believe, reach out to him when they heard about this law, but he's made it clear that this law won't be passed. I doubt it will ever be voted on, this particular Knesset as well.
That's good news, because Israel's the one place where you can see Christians and Muslims and Jews and Buddhists all living together in harmony. So that's good news to hear that the Prime Minister will not vote for this, or not allow this to go forward. Chris, let me ask you about something. China recently brokered a peace agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. What does this mean geopolitically, with China now filling that role that historically the Americans have held?
It's a huge concern for many here, Greg, that China is filling the vacuum that the United States, the Biden administration, has left open for China actually to walk in pretty freely. And they brokered this agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia, who are not friends. They're really bitter enemies. But what the Saudis are doing is actually they're looking for somebody that's going to be able to grant them some security. Historically, that has been the United States, and now China is filling that vacuum. It really has serious consequences for the region. It has consequences here in Israel, and it's likely right now that China will increase its influence in the region, and that's not good news for Israel or the United States.
Well, let me follow up with that. Does that end the Abraham Accords?
It doesn't end them, and it really actually doesn't mean that Saudi Arabia couldn't join the Abraham Accords, but it really takes them in a whole different direction than it did under the Trump administration. There was a big sense that after those initial signings of the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco, that Saudi Arabia would be the next one. It doesn't destroy the Abraham Accords, but it really does strike a blow against them. The UAE is looking at different options as well. So it's very, very difficult for the Abraham Accords to be the kind of thing that many people envisioned just a couple of years ago.
Okay, finally, Ramadan has begun. It will overlap with Passover and Easter in April. What does that mean for Israel in terms of security with these three religious events all at once?
Well, typically they increase security because of Ramadan, because historically there's been an increase of terror. So they'll be watching that very closely. But as you said, this is the time when Easter, Passover, and Ramadan fall at one place, and hopefully there'll be peace here in Jerusalem.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, sir, thank you for joining us today and clearing this up for us.
Great to be with you, Greg.